Hari Om. Suvarna Bhagini, you can, I think you're self-muted.
Namaskaram Bhagini.
Go ahead. You can chant the Dhyana Shlokas.
Okay. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadveshinim Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Phullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna parijataya totra vetraikapanaye jñānamudraya krishnaya gītāmritaduhe namaha sarvopanishado gavaha dogdha gopalanandanaha partho vatsas sudhir bhokta dugdham gītāmritam mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnau Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavai Rananadi Kaivartakah Keshavaha Parasharyavachas sarojamamalam Gītārtha-gandhotkatam Nānākhyanaka-kesaram Harikatha sambodhana bodhitam Loke sajjana षट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिन श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततत्कतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om Bhagini, Dhanyavadaः.
धन्यवाद।
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. So we completed the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, and we are now entering into the 13th chapter, Trayodashodhyayah, titled kṣetraṃ vibhaga yogaha. Kṣetraṃ vibhaga yogaha. Okay, so that's the title. We'll see what this means, right? So you would be remembering, as I said even in the last class during the summary, that Bhagavad Gita is essentially divided into 3 shatkams: the Prathama shatkam, the Madhyama shatkam, and the Charama shatkam. Okay, so in the first shatkam, the main topic is about the Jivatma, right? As I explained to you, we will see a little more details so that we are able to understand clearly what each shatkam is dealing with, right? So essentially in each section you will have 3 different topics getting covered, right? So the topic highlighted in the Prathama shatkam is Jiva Swarupam, the essential nature of Jivatma, the individual, and also Karma Yoga as an important sadhana, right? And the role of individual effort, prayatnaha, was covered, right? So in fact you might remember the very famous shloka, Uddare Datman Atmanam Atmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhu Atmaiva Vipuratmanaha. So that was in chapter 6, the 5th shloka, right? And the scriptures believe in free will, and it was strongly pointed out that what role our Manushya Prayatna or free will plays in determining our future. And in fact, recently I was seeing that there are so many Western books, right, which originate in the Western, like European or American authors, who write about the power of intention, right, and the Sankalpa Shakti. What is the importance of intention followed by self-effort, right? Very, very important aspects discussed in the first shatkam, right? All our scriptures uniformly criticize a fatalistic philosophy, right? Saying that everything is determined by fate, right? Only God can take care, right? That philosophy is termed as fatalism. It rejects free will or the ability of the individual to influence the future. And our scriptures don't definitely suggest that, okay? So the proof is there in Gita, right? So one of the factors that impacts us is definitely prarabdha karma, which is as per the law of karma, whatever has fructified that we have to go through in this janma, we will go through, right? But that is only one factor, right? And human beings we saw has free will, right? The introduction to Vedanta starts with the uniqueness of the human being's free will, right? Why is he different from all the other living beings, right? So this free will is stressed so much, right? So whether my fate is good or not, I don't know, but I definitely have the free will to influence my future, and I have to put in that effort, right? So that is prayatnaha. So the most important shloka, as I said, was Uddare Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasadayet. So 6th chapter, 5th verse that was, okay? So the first section of the 6 chapters, the first 6 chapters, first section highlights Jiva Swarupam and Karma Yoga as well as Prayatnaha, Manushya Prayatnaha. So Krishna talks about the essential nature of Jiva almost in every chapter. Okay, now I don't know whether you will also have this confusion. I had a confusion when I stepped into Gita. that every chapter seems to be talking about a little bit of upasana, a little bit of jnana yoga, and karma yoga. So why is it that it is divided into 3 shatkas, and the first shatka is mainly on jiva swarupam, karma yoga, prayatna? I think the important point to understand is the stress is on karma yoga and first understanding the essential nature of jiva. In each chapter, you would have a few verses on jnana yoga, etc. But predominantly, the focus is on this. And also, we have 2 dedicated chapters talking so much about karma yoga. The second chapter, third chapter, and all, lot of karma yoga is discussed, okay? And the essential nature of jiva. That is the reason, okay? So, we of course saw the 7 descriptions of Atma even in the right in the second chapter when Krishna introduced the teaching itself, right? We saw Atma, Nityaha, Satyaha, Akarta, Bhokta, etc. Right? So, Jiva Swarupam, Karma Yoga, and Prayatna is the subject matter of the Pratama Shatkam. Okay, very important. Now, the 7th chapter to the 12th chapter, you find Lord Krishna highlighting another 3 important topics which also every seeker must register and implement. What are those 3 factors, right? So we will see that in place of Jiva Swarupam, Lord Krishna is emphasizing or speaking about Ishvara Swarupam. So we saw para prakriti, apara prakriti, jagat karanam, etc. The nature of Paramatma, right? So the first was Jivatma Swarupam. The middle section is Paramatma Swarupam. And just as we dealt with the sadhana topic of Karma Yoga, here the primarily highlighted topic is Upasana Yoga, or the practice of meditation, right? So the Upasana Yoga is the practice of meditation, and there too Lord Krishna highlighted one particular meditation, if you remember, that is Vishwarupa Dhyanam, right? So many times I spoke about the famous Vishnu Sahasranama verse, Bhupado Yasya Nabir Vyeda Suranila. So this is very, very important portion, Dhyanam, focusing on Vishwarupa Ishvara Dhyanam, right? And the climax was the 11th chapter. So thus Ishvara Swarupam, Upasana Yoga, both these. And the third factor is mere prayatna alone is not sufficient, but Ishvara Anugraha is also very, very important, right? Oh Lord, I will put forth my effort, but I require your grace, right? And Bhagavan will give you the grace whenever you do your puja, right? Sandhya Vandanam, Nitya Naimittika Karma, any of these, your Pancha Mahayajna, right? Even if it is Sakama, it is fine. You might even want to ask for the spiritual journey to be obstacle free, right? So seeking the grace of the Lord, right? By working for that grace, right? So through Pancha Mahayajnam or anything. So this is prasadam, right? And prasada means Ishvara Anugraha. Thus the 3 topics of the middle section is Ishvara Swarupam, Upasana Yoga, and Prasada, right? Prasada or Ishvara Anugraha, right? So now this is, we must remember this. That's why I decided I will put a summary slide here. Please take a printout and keep if you want. So the Pratama Shatkam of the Gita dealt with Jiva Swarupam, Karma Yoga, and Prayatna. The second, the Madhyama Shatkam, deals with Ishvara Swarupam, Upasana Yoga, and Prasada. So we are now at a very, very important point in our study. We have completed the 12th chapter, which is the Madhyama Shatkam, right? Very important. That's why I'm taking this time to introduce this and summarize also, right? So now in another terms, when if you want to explain this, we refer to Jiva Swarupam as Tvam Padartha Lakshanam and Ishvara Swarupam as Tat Padartha Lakshanam, right? And if you take Mahavakyam, you have Tat Tvam Asi, right? So these 6 topics we have studied until the 12 chapters, right? Now we are going to enter the Charama Shatkam. Here also you have a parallel set of 3 topics, okay? The first one, the topic itself is going to be Jiva Ishvara Swarupa Aikyam. The essential nature of Jivatma and the essential nature of Paramatma is one and the same. Satyam, Jnanam, Sat, Chit, Swarupam, right? even though Jivatma and Paramatma are superficially different, essentially they are one, right? Wave and ocean, if you ask, are they identical? Are they different, right? You cannot even give the answer. Superficially seeing, they are different, but essentially, they both wave and ocean are not different from water, right? Of course, one is small, another is big, one is nityam, another is anityam, right? Wave is nama rupa, all of that you can go on and on and on, right? But if you see the essential oneness or the essential nature, both are water. Similarly, the essential oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma is what we are going to see in this. So, Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam. Aikyam means oneness, right? Is the subject matter. And in the Mahavakyam, it is referred to as Asipata, Pada, right? So, Tvam we have said, Tat we have said. So, the last one is Asi. I should have maybe added that also here as Tat, Tvam and Asi, right? So, the second, so the important topic here, the other thing we discussed was Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. We saw in the Prathama Shatkam and Madhyama Shatkam. So by extension, we are going to see Jnana Yoga in the Charama Shatkam, right? So the scriptural study, meditation alone is not enough. Service alone is not enough. Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, consistent systematic study of the Vedantic scriptures for a length of time under the guidance of a competent acharya is Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. You study, you get your doubts cleared, you also assimilate the knowledge, right, by bringing back the teaching and imbibing it, right, so that we call it as the Viparita Bhavana Nivritti. I am the small jiva, that feeling, right, to remove and claim the essential nature. So Viparita Bhavana Nivritti is what you achieve through Nididhyasanam, right? So the third topic is Jnana Yoga, basically the Aikyam, Jnana Yoga, and then what is the focus, right? So if you see, we'll come to that. And now if you see, this is just not merely an intellectual exercise, right? So what happens is, as you progress on the spiritual journey, study of Vedanta, you realize that it's just not an academic scholarship. Mere scholarship is not going to give us liberation. If you remember, we said Chitta Shuddhi is very important to grasp the knowledge. Now, Chitta Shuddhi is going to come through Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga, right? So, in Kathopanishad, there is a brilliant mantra. All these mantras are given towards the end in one slide, so don't get worried that you have to note this down. Navirato duscharita nashanto na samahitaha nashanta manaso vapi prajñānenaina mapnuyat. Kathopanishad 1-24. Neither the one who has not withdrawn from bad conduct, nor the one who lacks sense control, nor the one who lacks mind control, nor the one who lacks concentration can attain this Atma through knowledge. Basically, so much of emphasis on values, kṣetraṃ, acāraha, right? So, in the 13th chapter itself, from the 8th shloka up to the 12th shloka, Lord Krishna is going to enumerate 20 virtues, okay? And later, he is in the 16th chapter, Lord Krishna is going to enumerate 26 virtues, right? Called the Daivi Sampat, right? So here we refer to it as Satvika Gunaha. So in the 13th chapter, we are going to see 20 virtues coming, right? And I should be sincere and make an attempt to follow as much as possible, right? So you cannot say that this is Kali Yuga, society is like this, I can't follow, etc. We must make a sincere effort to follow these virtues, right? And we are going to see a lot of them listed in the 13th chapter, in the 16th chapter, etc. Right? The 13th chapter, now we are going to see. Okay. So basically, we are going to be seeing one important Mahavakyam also in this chapter. Very quickly, we will be seeing, entering that, right? That's why it is called a Mahavakyam chapter. The Mahavakyam is seen in the 3rd shloka of the 13th chapter. I will tell you, I have marked it with a different color star, so you will be able to note that. So there is a Mahavakyam in the Gita in the 13th chapter. Even earlier, actually, you see that Shankaracharya writes in his Bhashyam that there is another verse where it has been introduced earlier, but this is more explicit. So in the third shloka, we are going to see that. So a Mahavakyam coming in. Mahavakyam means essential oneness of Jivatma and Paramatma, right? So therefore, that is technically a Mahavakyam. So with this background, let us enter this chapter. I hope you got a bird's eye view of the entire Gita and the Charama Shatkam that is coming up now. Arjuna uvacha prakṛtiṃ puruṣam chaiva kṣetraṃ kṣetrajñameva ca etad veditumiccāmi jñānam jñeyaṃ ca keshava. There is a typo here. It is etad veditum iccāmi. Okay, I will make the correction, but just make sure that you don't get it wrong. Etad veditum iccāmi, not etad veditum uccāmi. Okay, so it is a e there. Etad veditum iccāmi. So this particular shloka is not found in all publications of the Bhagavad Gita. In some publications, the shloka is there. In some others, it is not there. Therefore, two versions are there. Since the shloka is very useful in understanding this chapter, generally we include the shloka, and therefore this is included in the 13th chapter, right? So therefore, we will have 35 shlokas instead of 34. So in case you are using another textbook, just make note of this. Because we have introduced this as the first shloka, you will have 35 in total. Okay, so therefore serial number will also change, so just take care of that. Okay, then you will be looking for the wrong shloka. So look at the second line, etad veditum iccāmi. I like to know these 6 words or this group of 6 technical words. I would like to understand. What are those 6? 1 prakṛti, 2 puruṣah, chaiva is a conjugation. Therefore, then kṣetraṃ is the third one, kṣetrajñah is the fourth one, jñānam is the fifth one, and jñeyaṃ is the 6th one, right? We will be seeing the details in the following shlokas. Okay, there's only a general observation here. Since even though there are 6 words, right, many of them are synonyms. We'll quickly see which of them are synonyms. And Arjuna does not know that. Therefore, he is using these words. And if you club those synonymous words in the 6 topics, it will get reduced to only 3 topics. So let us see what the synonyms are and from what angle the synonyms will appear. Okay. So these are the 6 terms. And the word puruṣah, kṣetrajñah, right, and jñeyaṃ, right? All these 3 refer to one and the same absolute reality only, but from 3 different angles. So all the 3 words refer to consciousness principle, the ultimate reality. In the 7th chapter, it was called what? Prakṛti. When we studied the consciousness, we talked about 3 features. We said it is not subject to change, it is not subject to any attribute, and it doesn't have divisions. So prakṛti is consciousness without cat, C-A-D. We said that. The word puruṣah is used to depict the same consciousness as the all-pervading principle. Purayati sarvam iti puruṣah. The all-pervading consciousness is puruṣah. The very same all-pervading consciousness must be inside us also, because it has to be there, because it is all-pervading. If you have, say, space and you have a wall, and then you have a room that has 4 walls, you have space outside which is all-pervading, and you have space within the wall also, right? So that consciousness which is enclosed within our body, enlivening the body, is called kṣetraññah. Okay, kṣetraññah. I'll correct that also. It should be kṣetraññah. So same consciousness from macro angle is puruṣa, from micro angle is kṣetraññah. That's like, it's just the same space that we call differently from two different angles, right? So similarly, puruṣa is from macro angle and kṣetrajñah is from micro angle. Okay, so very important. And exactly like, suppose you say there is a place called Adayar, right? So from the context of, say, when you're talking about different states of India, you would not call it Adayar, you will say Tamil Nadu, right? So whereas if you're talking to somebody in some other international conference, you'll say, oh, I'm from India, right? So depending on the context, we use the term to depict where you are from. Similarly, Purushaha, Kṣetraññah are both the same Chaitanyam, one from the standpoint of the macro and the other within the body. Now the same thing is also called jñeyaṃ. Consciousness is also called jñeyaṃ. Why? If a person wants liberation, the spiritual seekers will have to compulsorily know this Chaitanyam. So something to be known, the truth to be known for liberation, jñeyaṃ. Therefore it is called jñeyaṃ, right? The noun form, jñeyaṃ, right? So the truth to be known for liberation. So with this knowledge, you will get liberation. Without this knowledge, you will not get liberation, even if you have any other degree in this world, right? Therefore, it is called jñeyaṃ, to be known. Thus, all the three together refer to what? It is a Chetana Tattvam. All three put together are known as Chetana Tattvam, which is consciousness principle. The next two synonym words are kṣetraṃ and prakṛti. Okay, both refer to matter principle. Okay, kṣetraṃ and prakṛti both are referring to the matter principle. Therefore, both are achetana tattvam. Right? So they are just two different angles. When the matter is clearly experienceable distinctly in the form of world, it is called kṣetraṃ. During Srishti Kale, it is called kṣetraṃ. But at the time of Pralayam, when it gets back into a seed form, it is technically called prakrti. Therefore, the seed form of matter is called prakrti, and the tree form of the manifest version is called kṣetraṃ. So, unmanifest kṣetraṃ is prakrti, manifest prakrti is kṣetraṃ, right? So, whether it is in potential form or in kinetic form, it is matter only, whether it is in energy form or in tangible matter form, right? So kṣetraṃ and prakrti both together are achetana tattvam only, right? So and then what is left out? Left out is jñānam, right? So jñānam is nothing but what? The values basically, okay? So it is not the conventional meaning, but in the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna is going to give us special meaning, all the moral virtues, and Lord Krishna is going to enumerate 20 of them. Those virtues in this context is called jñānam, or the gunas. The virtues are called jñānam here. So Lord Krishna will enumerate, we'll see them in detail. So the chetana tattvam, achetana tattvam and jñānam. Okay, so they are the three different subjects. So we have reduced the 6 topics to just 3 of them: Chetana Tattvam, Achetana Tattvam and values, right? So even though Arjuna uses synonyms, Lord Krishna does not want to tell Arjuna that you are repeating the question. Like saying, Swamiji uses this example: I am going to Coimbatore by Nilgiri Express. And you can also say, I am going to Coimbatore by Blue Mountain, right? Some people may relate or may not relate, but it is the same train, right? Which is called Blue Mountain and Nilgiri Express, right? So very important that Lord Krishna is not going to correct him, right? He is going to just go about explaining this. He does not want to tell Arjuna that you're repeating the same question in the form of 6 topics, okay? So because Lord Krishna doesn't want to displease Arjuna. He wants to go with Arjuna, right? So with this, we will go into Lord Krishna's answer. Okay. Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Idam Shariram Kaunteya, Idam Shariram Kaunteya, Kṣetraṃ Kṣetraṃ Etadyo Vetti Tam Prahuhu, Etadyo Vetti Tam Prahuhu, kṣetrajñah iti tatvidah, kṣetrajñah iti tatvidah. So, even though Arjuna's question starts with Prakriti and Purusha, Lord Krishna chooses to deal with them later only around 23rd shloka or so, Lord Krishna deals with them. So Lord Krishna first chooses the topic of kṣetraṃ and kṣetrajñah. This being a profound topic, let us understand a little bit of background, right? To understand this kṣetra, kṣetrajñah, Vedanta asks us to note the nature of the external world. May you study the external world of matter and understand the features of the external world. And when you study, you certainly see some features which are common, right? The first feature is drishyatvam. This is something that I'm revising after a long time. We have done this earlier in the second chapter. The reference is given now. We'll see that. Chapter 2, class 10, verses 11 and 12. Okay. So we have seen there an acronym also called OMACT. Okay. OMACT, O standing for objectifiable, right? We saw OMACT 5 features: drishyatvam, bhautikatvam, sagunatvam, savikaratvam, agamapayitvam. Okay. Drishyatvam means the entire world is an object of experience, right? Drishyam means experienceable, right? We can see it. The second feature is I see the entire world is made up of 5 elements, right? Matter principle, bhautikam, right? Pancha bhautikam. That's why bhautika shastram we say chemistry, physics, etc. Pancha bhutaha, right? Bhautika means matter, material. Then third one is sagunatvam. They all have got attributes, right? They have physical properties, chemical properties, right? They all have attributes. A standing for attributes. The fourth feature is savikaratvam. It is subject to change. It is constantly changing. Okay. And the fifth one is agamapayitvam, right? Temporary or transient. It is subject to arrival and departure. So in the waking stage, you experience the world. The moment you go to dream or deep sleep state, if you go, this disappears, right? So therefore, the external world is also subject to arrival and departure, anityatvam or agamapayitvam. So these are the 5 features of the external world. Vedanta says, having studied the world, you find this world with these 5 features is jadam in nature. Jadam means achetanam, right? Now Vedanta says, come closer to your body. Try to find out the nature of the body logically. On logical analysis, what happens? We find the body is also an object of intimate experience. We can see the body, we can hear the body, right? You can hear inside, you can hear outside, you can the body, you can smell the body, you can see the body, all of them, right? So body is also experienceable, drishyam. Okay. Then it is also made up of matter, bhautikatvam. Body is made up of matter. Same akasha, vayu, agni, jalam, prithvi. We saw in detail in introduction to Vedanta, right? If you want, you can revise those portions, right? Body also has attributes, height, weight, color, etc. Body also has got savikaratvam. It is subject to change. And not only that, agama payitvam, the body is available for your use only during the waking stage, and in dream stage you cannot use this body at all, right? Therefore this is also agama payi. Therefore Vedanta says that this body is also having the 5 features like the inert world. So the body also must be inert by its very nature. So shariram jadam drishyatvat bhautikatvat sagunatvat savikaratvat agamapayitvat. Right? All the 5. OMAC. You remember OMAC. Okay. So even the brain, the mind, all of them. Only thing is mind is subtle, right? But that is also made up of subtle matter only, or energy, whatever you call. Okay. So mind also has its own attributes. Mind comes and goes. Mind is changing all the time. All of them, right? So world is jadam, body is jadam, mind is jadam. Now the question is, if body and mind are both inert by themselves, how do I experience body as a sentient one? Even though naturally or logically it has to be inert only, I experience them to be sentient ones. Therefore, the question is, how does this inert body become sentient? Right? How does the body-mind complex become sentient? Right? So, if a naturally insentient body-mind complex is becoming sentient or must be appearing sentient, which is what we are experiencing now, it is Chetanam, then it must be because of borrowed consciousness only, right? So we have to remember this example. We have seen this before also. It is like moonlight. We all know that moon does not have light on its own. On a Paurnami night, we find moon has what? It is so bright, right? So the question comes, how does this non-luminous moon appear so bright on a Paurnami night? So the answer is very simple. It does not have any natural light. It is now bright because it has borrowed light. Borrowed from where? It's definitely not borrowed from here, right? So it has borrowed from sun. Sun does not borrow the light. Sun has natural light. Therefore, just as the moon has got borrowed light, Vedanta says body and mind are like moon. They have borrowed sentiency from another very important factor, and that is called Atma, the kṣetraññah. So to introduce kṣetraññah, we had to speak all this, right? So that important factor, Atma, the consciousness within the body, is called kṣetraññah, right? So in this shloka, that is kṣetraññah, right? So puruṣa, kṣetraññah, all of them refer to Atma only. So, and this Atma has got natural sentiency just like Surya. So, if Atma lends sentiency to body-mind complex, very important, okay? If Atma lends sentiency to the body-mind complex, what is the nature of this Atma? Vedanta says, very simple. You have noted the nature of the inert world and the body-mind complex, right? Atma has to be like or different from the world. It has to be different only, because Atma is a sentient being. It is a Chetana Tattvam. Okay. So if Atma is like the world, then that will also become Achetana, right? Therefore, Atma, which lends sentiency to the body-mind complex, will have features opposite to the world, body, and mind. So if you know the 5 features of the world, you just say the opposite, right? So if you say Drishyatvam here, you will say Atma is having Adrishyatvam as the feature. So if you say Bhautikatvam here, you will say Abhautikatvam. So you say Sagunatvam, you will say Atma's feature is Asagunatvam or Agunatvam or Nirgunatvam, either of them. You don't use the word Asagunatvam. You say Agunatvam or Nirgunatvam. So Atma does not have, what is the other attribute? It doesn't have attributes. It is not subject to change. So we said the world is Savikara. So now Atma is Avikara. So the feature is Avikaratvam or Nirvikaratvam. Then the final feature is the opposite of Agamapayitvam, which is Anagamapayitvam. It never arrives and departs. So it is a non-arriving, non-departing witness of all arrivals and departures. This is what we are going to study in these shlokas. Very profound chapter and a very subtle chapter. We are in the Charama Shatkam. So it is Jnana Yoga topic. You can see that. So the first point we saw was, so the inert world that we are experiencing, right? That is the first point that we saw. The world is inert. Then we also concluded that the body-mind complex is also inert, right? Because it is made up of matter only, right? And then we said that it must have borrowed sentiency from elsewhere, and that borrowed sentiency comes from Atma, right? And otherwise the world, the body and mind are all anatma. The world is anatma, body is anatma, mind is anatma, right? Thus the Shastra divides the entire creation into non-material and material, spirit and matter, right? And in the 13th chapter, the material world, right, the material body and the material mind is going to be called kṣetraṃ. Anatma is being replaced by the word kṣetraṃ. So the non-material spirit which leads sentiency to the body mind, Lord Krishna is going to call kṣetrajñah. So anatma is kṣetraṃ, atma is kṣetrajñah. So matter equals anatma equals kṣetraṃ, and consciousness is equal to atma is equal to kṣetrajñah. We can also say spirit, but somehow I don't like to use the word spirit, so we'll stick to consciousness, atma, which is kṣetrajñah, right? So, and then the next question. These are all the methods of self-inquiry, right? So the self-inquiry route map is given. Slowly, we sort of go through it step by step. It's very significant. By going into meditation and asking, who am I, right? You will never be able to understand anything. You will only be called a fool by others, or you keep on asking, who am I? You will keep telling yourself, okay, you're a fool. That's all. What else can you do? That is not the way. Through meditation, you are not going to get this knowledge. There is a systematic way of studying this, right? So now we said Atma lends sentiency to the body and mind. So then we also saw the nature of Atma, therefore, which is opposite to the nature of Anatma, right? So one important aspect is Atma is never an object of experience, because it is the ever witnessing, right? It is the witnessing experiencer. So the rule is experiencer can never be experienced, right? So with two eyes, we can see everything other than our own eyes, right? So the seer eyes cannot be seen by the seer himself, right? Very important. So the subject is never subject to objectification. The experiencer can never be experienced, right? Very, very important point here. So therefore, Atma is never drishyam. It is always drik. So Acharya Shankaracharya writes a famous book, Drik Drishya Viveka, right? So Atma is never drishyam, it is always drik. The experiencer subject, and therefore when somebody asks, who am I? Or when I ask myself, who am I should never say the world, the body, right, etc. They are all objects, drishyam. I am different from the drishyam, the world, the body, the mind. In fact, if you remember, the definition of Atma in Tattva Bodha is Atma Kaha, right? There we say, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha, right? Panchakoshatitaha san Avastatraya Sakshi Yat Tishtati Satchitananda Swarupam, right? Yat Tishtati Sa Atma. I tried to tell from memory. I'm not able to. I hope I covered all the aspects. Yes, I think I covered. So in English, it is something which is different from the Shariratrayam, the Sthula Sukshma Karana Shariram. It is beyond the Panchakoshas. and it is the witness of the three states of experience, the Jagrada Avastha, the Sushupti, the Swapna Avastha and the Sushupti Avastha, and is of the nature of Sat Chit Ananda, the existence, consciousness, happiness. Now don't get too bogged down by this, because we are slowly going to see all these aspects. We are now looking at Atma as consciousness. Okay, so we saw all of this in Introduction to Vedanta. Okay, so only difference between body, external world and mind is that the mind is very close to Atma, and the rest of it is through the mind we experience, right? Very beautifully put in Naishkarmya Siddhi, that mind is called the Sakshyam, and through the mind the entire world is experienced. Whatever you see through the sense organs, they all have to go through the mind, right? So very important aspect here, right? So consciousness is not matter, definitely, right? So in Kathopanishad it is said, Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Avyayam, Tatarasam, Nityam, Agandhavachayat, Anadyanantam, Mahatap Param Dhruvam, Nichaya Tan Vrityamukhat Pramuchyate. 1.3.15. The Brahman, that is Atma, is soundless, touchless, colorless, tasteless, smellless, beginningless, endless, decayless, deathless, changeless, and beyond Mahat. Having clearly known that Brahman, one is freed from the jaws of death. You also got a wonderful spiritual nature which we never bothered to inquire into. Each of us has got this nature, right? So Nirgunatvam, which we saw as a third feature, right? So it is said in the famous verse which we saw in the second chapter, Na jayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavitavana bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha hanyate hanyamane sharire na hanyate hanyamane sharire. I don't have birth, growth, decay, disease or death, right? When the body perishes, the consciousness principle does not get destructed, right? So that is changelessness is the fourth feature that we saw, and the fifth one is anagama payitvam, right? So it is beyond desha, kala, atita, chaitanyam, right? Chaitanya, kṣetrañah, atma, aham asti, that is asmi. That is what we need to claim, right? So because Atma does not have any attribute, it is very difficult for us to imagine or assimilate the concept, right? But it is all pervading, and that is kṣetrañah. One has to claim that Atma as oneself and use the kṣetraṃ, the word for the worldly transactions, without ever getting attached to the body-mind complex. Again in the second chapter, Krishna said, Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinnani naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. Right? Just as we use a dress for some time and we cast off, the body also we use, and it is a disposable one, right? Disposable and dispensable. Therefore, use the body but never get attached to the body. There's so many important lessons are going to be based on these points. So kṣetraṃ is drishya, bhautika, savikara, saguna, agama pai. Kṣetrajñah is adrishya, abhautika, nirguna, nirvikara, anagama pai. If possible, remember the Sanskrit words. Otherwise, you can stick to OMAT. Okay. So it includes world, body, and mind. Kṣetraṃ. That you must remember. It includes our body and mind also. And kṣetrajñah is the observer consciousness principle. So let's see the meaning of the shloka. So, hey Kaunteya, Arjuna, right? He's asking, Kaunteya, idam shariram, this physical body that you experience, which includes the mind also, sthula shariram, sukshma shariram, karana shariram, iti abhidiyate, that is called kṣetraṃ, anatma, matter, right? So the body is called kṣetraṃ. Now you might wonder, right, why? Generally, the word kṣetraṃ means a field of experience. An agricultural land is called kṣetraṃ, right? In Sanskrit, it is used for representing any agricultural land or a sacred place. Now, Shankaracharya asked the question, why is the body called kṣetraṃ? And he gives several meanings, right? But three of them are very, very useful meanings, right? The first one is a negative meaning, that is kṣetraṃ is that which is subject to decay. Shiyate iti kṣetraṃ, right? So, shayat sharanat, subject to decay. Shiyate iti kṣetraṃ. Kṣetraṃ iti uchyate, derived from the Sanskrit root kshi or kshar. We know body is subject to degeneration, and if you don't know that, anyway, as we grow old, we will come to know about it. This is the first meaning. The second meaning Acharya gives is Shatat Trayate iti kṣetraṃ. Shata means misery, dukkham, right? And the sansara trap, right? And Trayate means that saves the human beings from samsara. Why? Because your body alone will help you do the spiritual sadhana and it will save you from samsara. So that is the second meaning. Shatat Trayate iti kṣetraṃ, right? So Shata means misery. That's why human body is a great blessing, right? And very, very important aspect. And second meaning is this, which is, we use the body to save ourselves or extricate ourselves from the samsara, right? So the third meaning, he says, Shankaracharya says that kṣetraṃ is like an agricultural land. And what is the commonness between agricultural land and this body, right? The similarity and difference we should know. Shankaracharya says, in agricultural land, you sow the grains and with that you reap the benefit later. So you can sow and reap, right, later. Similarly, you sow by doing karma, and then the karma, the action is like sowing the seed, and later when we reap the benefit, it is reaping the phalam. Thus, the body is useful for doing this, right? Jnana yoga sadhana, which is sowing, and moksha phalam, which is reaping. Therefore, it is similar to agricultural land. So, as you sow, you reap, right? So, very important. If you do punyam, you will get sukham. If you do papam, you will get dukkham. Therefore, body is like kṣetraṃ, and therefore Lord Krishna says, idam shariram kṣetraṃ idhyabhidhiyate, right? Etad yo veti. So know that, right? So I, the consciousness principle, who am aware of the baby I was, the youngster I was, the aging person I am aware of, right? So the body becomes old and the body is continuously changing. But the common aspect across all of this is the consciousness principle. Yaha veti. And what is the nature? Adrishya bhautika nirguna that we saw, right? So, saha kṣetrajñah iti viduhu. Wise people declare thus. Thus, every individual is a mixture of kṣetrajñah and kṣetraṃ, right? Now, what is the proposition of this mixture? Which one do you want to claim as yourself? Whether you want to claim the kṣetraṃ component or whether you want to claim the kṣetrajñah component, it's up to you, right? You decide what you want to do. Moksha is claiming the kṣetrajñah, right? Very important. Otherwise, if we do not claim that, rest of the life we will be chasing only kṣetraṃ. Once you claim kṣetrajñah as yourself, life becomes enjoyable. You are a jivan mukta. Continuing, this is the Mahavakya shloka. Kṣetrajñam chapi mam viddhi, kṣetrajñam chapi mam viddhi, sarvakṣetreshu bharata, sarvakṣetreshu bharata, kṣetrayor jñānam, kṣetrayor jñānam, yatta jñānam matam mama, yatta jñānam matam mama. Each verse is a very, very profound verse, and we have to do mananam and nididhyasanam for hours, days, weeks, months and years, right? Until now we saw body is kṣetraṃ, mind is kṣetraṃ, I am kṣetraஞah, the formless consciousness principle, right? Who am aware of this body-mind complex. Okay. So now everybody is only in the kṣetraṃ field, whomever we know, right? Everyone that we are aware of. Therefore, there are so many kṣetraṇi, right? And the natural question will be, what about when you have hundreds of kṣetrams? What about the kṣetrajñah? Kṣetram is body. Assuming that there are so many people listening now, 100 or whatever it is, or in a classroom there are so many people, you have so many kṣetrams, right? Kṣetram, plural is kṣetraṇi, right? But how many kṣetrajñah are there in this hall? So what will we reply, right? We will say naturally each one is aware of his own kshetra, right? His own body, and therefore he thinks that he has one kṣetrajñah. As for his body, he has one kṣetrajñah. So there are hundreds of kṣetraṇi, therefore there are hundreds of kṣetrajñah. Lord Krishna says that is a very thoughtful, thought through mistake, right? The answer is kṣetraṇi are many, kṣetrajñah, the consciousness, cannot be many. Because we have said kṣetrajñah does not have attributes, kṣetrajñah does not have form, it is not limited by the boundaries of anybody, right? So therefore it is all pervading, right? It is boundaryless, it is formless, right? So it cannot be spatially located. Anything formless cannot be spatially located, exactly like Akasha has no form, right? Therefore Vedanta says kṣetrajñah, the consciousness principle, is one only, which is in everybody, right? Not only human beings, right? It is there in every mosquito, right? Every plant, every being, any, even if it's a bacteria, if it's a virus, kṣetrajñah is, the consciousness principle is the same, which is behind all these living beings. The kṣetrajñah is exactly the same. You cannot say that this has superior kṣetrajñah, that has inferior kṣetrajñah, nothing. Why say kṣetrajñah is superior, etc. So Lord Krishna says kṣetrajñah, the enclosed consciousness within the body, is same as the all-pervading consciousness in every body. And all-pervading consciousness was given the name prakṛti in chapter 7, if you remember, right? So Lord Krishna now says, hey Arjuna, right? The Lord has got, if you remember, he said that Lord has got the nature of prakṛti, and therefore Lord Krishna now says, kṣetrajñah is identical with that prakṛti, the Paramatma. The kṣetrajñah, the Jivatma, is identical with Bhagavan, the Paramatma, right? Because both of them are nothing but one Chaitanya Tattvam only. In the entire Gita, one of the most significant Mahavakyam is this shloka. And Shankaracharya writes commentary running to pages, right? And it is, Swamiji actually conducted, I think, 15 hours or 19 hours for this one shloka's commentary, okay? So justice can't be done at all for this, right? In the Bhashyam, it is analyzed extensively, and he refers to this, and he says this kṣetrajñah is Paramatma only. So the kṣetrajñam mam vitti. Mam means Krishna Paramatma. Every jnani says, I am Paramatma itself, and this all-pervading consciousness, you should not ask where is it located. It is available everywhere. Sarva kshetreshu bharata. Right? It is available in the same form, just as space in a golden pot and space in a mud pot, the space in the wall, in the room, the space outside, everything is the same, right? Now, the pot may be dirty, but the space is not dirty, right? It is pure, right? You don't have to clean. The space is always Shuddha. Therefore, Shastra says every one of you is ever pure, Nitya Shuddha. Right? The notion is that I am impure. How does it come? It is born out of ignorance of the true nature of yourself. Right? So, Nitya Shuddha Atma you are. Right? Sarva kshetreshu Bharata. Kṣetraṃ jñānam. The clear knowledge of spirit, consciousness, principle and matter. The doubtless, clear and complete knowledge of this. Tat jñānam. This alone is real knowledge. This alone is spiritual knowledge. This alone is liberating knowledge. If I miss this knowledge, I am going to mistakenly identify with this body-mind complex, and then I become what? A finite individual, right? No doubt I have Ichcha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, etc. And as long as I am an individual in the world, I have no limitations. I have a lot of resources which I can use. Truly, it is a limitation. But as far as the resources are there, I can use them. And whether it is financial resources, emotional resources from the children, whatever it is, right? So emotionally, physically, intellectually, and financially, I could use up any of these resources, right? But there is a limitation, and the limitation means helplessness, right? So I feel powerless in most of the situations of life, and this alone, right, is samsara. The feeling of helplessness is samsara, right? So very important aspects here, right? So when you know this knowledge and you understand the liberating knowledge, you are a Jivan Muktaha. And Swamiji always says, it is exactly like, say, Amitabh Bachchan, who has crores and crores of money, playing the role of a beggar and crying and going through suffering. Even for playing the role of a beggar, he is going to get money, right? So it is basically, as one person rightly said, you are not a human being seeking spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a temporary human experience. This body is a costume. Enjoy the Vesha. Never become the human being, but use the wisdom to be a Jivan Mukta. So this is Lord Krishna's message, and this is the liberating wisdom. We will see more in the next class. पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Now somebody had requested for the meaning of this verse, so I just picked the URL and put here. You can, when I send out the the slides, you can download them and click. You can actually see the chapter 2 session 9, or you can also go to Gita verse by verse playlist and you can find it in chapter 2 session 9. I also put up a short URL for you. Any questions I can take? Let me just see if there are any questions. Dridrishya Viveka is by Vidyaranya. I think that's by Shankaracharya. I'm going to confirm that. Okay, maybe I got it wrong, but I will confirm that and let you know. Okay. Any other questions? I know today was a very heavy class because this is now going to get subtler and subtler, right? So anybody has any questions, you can put up your hands also here. Okay. Yeah, you're self-muted. I think it says SUDS. You're self-muted. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask. No? Anybody else? Okay. I think there are no more questions. So we will meet next week. Okay, same time. Hari.